The council was in talks, as usual. I had to take a break from ambassadorial work with the Terrans and start working in a more calming and controlled atmosphere. I smiled to myself as a slur was thrown about, causing an uproar. A huge groan of anger and resentment suddenly overcame the room as a Turanian and Olivarchian stabbed each other with word swords and angry remarks. A delightful, petty dispute on mining rights on a border world. I breathed a deep sigh of relief and sank into my seat. The ambassador from the Zaran delegation next door noticed and asked me what I was so calm about. Oh, it's nothing. It's good to get back to basics. Petty squabbles, childish bullying, silly conflicts. It never goes anywhere. It's just so relaxing, I said proudly. You find this idiotic nonsense relaxing? We're on the brink of war for the umpteenth time, and you're relaxed? His mandibles clicked in confusion. Oh yes, trust me, compared to dealing with humans, this is a spa vacation. Humans and their ridiculous weaponry gave us all constant headaches. I sat back in my chair and laughed at yet another racial slur. The back and forth continued as it usually did for a few more minutes. I just sat and basked in the relaxed atmosphere of political debate. A strange noise came from behind me. The door opened, and the room was suddenly overcome by the horrible, desperate, despair-filled wailing of a Shakandi hive prince. A horrid blue goop flowed like rivers from his 6 eyes as his crabby form stumbled into my delegation pod and handed me a datapad. He gobbled and garbled, barely attempting to snort out a coherent statement from his crying face, as he just slumped into the corner and resumed his despair. The chamber just looked on expectantly and stared at me, waiting as the Shakandi began using his head as a hammer against the wall. How did you do? Was all I could manage to understand from his horrendous wailing. I read the report on the datapad. As I read through each line, my skin tone went from a deep ocean blue to an almost pale snow white. I sank back into my seat and panic began to set in. My hands started shaking, so violently shaking that I couldn't read and had to stop for a few moments. I stood up from my seat and tried to calm down, wrapping my arms around myself to try to stop the shaking. The entire time this was happening, the council was at the edge of their seats, staring at me and trying to figure out what horror story I was reading. I sank back down, having regained my composure, but not my skin pigments, and resumed reading. I finished and was slightly relieved at the outcome, but not so much as implication. I had stopped shaking, but I was still white with shock. I looked at my now pale arm and squealed in panic for a minute as I lost the beautiful blue. I had literally had the colour in my skin shocked out of me. I stood up and moved our podium into the speaker's corner, shoving the previous delegate out of it, and began to read the datapad aloud. To the Shakandi Hive Queen, from the Terran Union. This letter is to inform you that we have conducted a test with an experimental weapon codenamed Scion. The test firing of this experimental weapon has produced some interesting results, to say the least. Firstly, the information we gained confirmed the existence of gods and the astral plane. Who'd have thunk it, eh? Secondly, the weapons test confirmed that the fabric of reality is slightly more permeable than initially expected, and gods can in fact be harmed by mortal weapons, given enough encouragement. Therefore, we are afraid we have some bad news. We have, through various experiments and a few seances, confirmed the existence of the Shakandi god known as the Great Devourer. We regret to inform you, however, our weapons test was unfortunately a lot more potent than expected, and the Great Devourer was accidentally destroyed, /killed, /annihilated during the test. Yes, you did read that correctly. We accidentally killed your god. Emphasis on accidentally. We had a minor miscalculation in our test weapon's power, and, Well, the results speak for themselves. We sincerely apologize, and hope that this event does not affect any future relations with your empire. We are fully committed to repairing any damage caused by this mistake, in judgment, and will listen to any requests you have to mend the damage we have done. First step in this process is, of course, to dismantle the weapon in question, and cease all research efforts into that kind of technology. This has, of course, already been done. We will be looking forward to any notices from your people in the coming days. With love, the Terran Union of Systems. P.S. Please do enjoy the basket of goodies we sent you as an apology. Many more to come. P.P.S. Oops. I finished reading the page aloud and noticed the Shikandi prince has stopped blubbering and was now half crying, half laughing, as he devoured a small fabric/fiber basket of foodstuffs.
"This is good. This is very good,"
he said, between mouthfuls and sobs. I sat back down in my seat and allowed a solid hour of deafening silence to follow my reading. Jaws were on the floor. Paws were now soaked in sweat. Carapaces were showing microfractures from stress. Stretch marks were appearing on skins. For a solid damn hour, the room lay deathly silent, permeated only by the sobs and scrunching noises from a depressed High Prince. Finally, someone broke the silence. "What do we do now?"
"Nothing. We do nothing.
There is nothing we can do, could do, or would do. They just killed a god. What can we do?" Another councilman angrily responded.
"Quiet,"
I bellowed angrily. "Dear delegates, there is no need for panic. I know my appearance denotes otherwise, but I assure you there is no need to panic. It says so right here." I attached the datapad with the letter to Council Chambers and highlighted a particular passage. The first step in this process is, of course, to dismantle the weapon in question and cease all research efforts into that kind of technology. This has, of course, already been done. The humans are absolutely batshit doolally insane, but they aren't stupid. They know how bad they did, and they dismantled their giant god-killing gun and won't do it again. We have nothing to worry about, I assure you, I said. I allowed my message to sink in and sat back in my seat with a smile. My demeanor change seemed to calm everyone down, and within a few hours we were back to our own petty squabbles. I messaged the Terran ambassador and asked if he did indeed dismantle the God-Killer cannon. He said yes, and all documentation has been shelved for now. I let out a loud squeal of terror and passed out as I read the words, "But it's okay, we already have an attack moon being built. It's a lot more stable."